Have you ever gazed up at the night sky, marveling at the swirling dance of distant galaxies, only to later encounter images of the quantum realm and feel an uncanny sense of déjà vu? There's something almost mystical in the way the vast, sweeping patterns of the cosmos seem to echo the intricate, chaotic beauty of subatomic particles. It's as if the universe is whispering a secret one that connects the grandest scales of existence to the tiniest, most fundamental building blocks of reality. This isn't just a coincidence. It's a reflection of one of humanity's oldest and most profound philosophical principles: as above, so below. This ancient Hermetic idea, carved into the fabric of esoteric traditions for millennia, suggests that the macrocosm and microcosm mirror one another, that the laws governing the stars are the very same laws that govern the atoms within us. For centuries, this was seen as little more than mystical poetry, a beautiful metaphor with no grounding in empirical science. But what if I told you that modern quantum physics is now uncovering startling, tangible evidence that this principle might be more than metaphorical? What if the dance of electrons and the structure of galaxies are not just similar, but fundamentally connected in ways we are only beginning to understand? In this video, we're setting out on a journey to explore these breathtaking connections. We'll delve into the world of quantum entanglement, where particles millions of light years apart communicate instantaneously, defying our classical understanding of space and time. We'll examine how fractal patterns repeat from the branching of neurons in your brain to the vast cosmic web of galaxies, and we'll ask what it means for us conscious beings peering both outward into space and inward into the quantum void, to exist in a universe that seems to operate by this elegant, mirror-like logic. This is more than science. It's a bridge between the material and the metaphysical, a story that redefines not only how we see the cosmos, but how we see ourselves within it. So settle in, open your mind, and join me as we uncover the hidden unity at the heart of reality. To truly grasp the power of this idea, we need to travel back in time, to the sun-baked sands of ancient Egypt. It is here, in the heart of one of history's most spiritually advanced civilizations, that we find the earliest seeds of this unifying principle. The ancient Egyptians saw their world as an interconnected whole. The rhythmic flooding of the Nile was mirrored in the celestial journey of the stars, and the pharaoh's rule on earth was a direct reflection of the divine order maintained by the gods above. This world, wasn't merely philosophical, it was the very bedrock of their society, architecture, and understanding of the cosmos. Their temples were designed as microcosms of the universe, with floors representing the earth and ceilings painted with star charts, literally embodying the concept of as above, so below, in stone and ritual. This profound Egyptian wisdom was later synthesized and codified by the Greeks in the city of Alexandria, a bustling hub of cultural and intellectual exchange. It was here that the legendary figure of Hermes Trismegistus emerged, a syncretic fusion of the Egyptian god of wisdom, Thoth, and the Greek messenger god, Hermes. The writings attributed to him, known as the Hermetic corpus, became the cornerstone of a philosophical and spiritual tradition called Hermeticism. And at the very heart of these teachings was the principle of correspondence, famously encapsulated in the phrase, "That which is below corresponds to that which is above, and that which is above corresponds to that which is below," to accomplish the miracles of the one thing. This was far more than a poetic observation. It was a radical declaration of a fundamental law of existence. The above, or the macrocosm, referred to the entire universe, the cosmos, and the divine realm of pure spirit and archetypes. The below, or the microcosm, referred to the human being, the earthly realm, and the world of matter. Hermeticism proposed that these were not separate domains, but were intimately connected through a relationship of analogy and reflection. The human being was seen as a miniature universe, containing within themselves all the elements and principles present in the cosmos. By studying the stars, one could understand the human soul. By mastering the inner self, one could, in turn, influence the outer world. This made the alchemist's laboratory a sacred space where this cosmic interplay was actively explored. This principle became the engine of Western esotericism. Medieval alchemists applied it directly to their work, seeking to transform base metals into gold, not just as a physical process, but as a spiritual allegory for the refinement of the human soul. The intricate symbols in their texts, the green lion devouring the sun, the sacred marriage of the king and queen, were not merely chemical formulas, but maps of an inner, psychological landscape. They believed that the chaos, separation, and eventual perfection they observed in their flasks were direct mirrors of the spiritual stages of purification and enlightenment they themselves were to undergo. The macrocosmic drama of creation, fall, and redemption was being played out in the microcosm of their own being. This idea of correspondence echoed through the Renaissance, influencing thinkers like Paracelsus, who applied it to medicine by asserting that the macrocosm of nature contained the cures for the microcosm of the human body. It found a home in the intricate symbolism of Kabbalah, with its tree of life mapping both the divine emanations of creation and the structure of the human psyche. Even the architecture of Gothic cathedrals, with their vast naves pointing heavenward and their detailed rose windows symbolizing the cosmic order, was designed to lift the human spirit from the microcosm of earthly existence toward the macrocosm of divine majesty. For centuries, this was the dominant lens through which mystics, philosophers, and early scientists sought to understand their place in a unified, intelligible, and meaningful universe. Yet for all its profound insights, this ancient world-view was eventually overshadowed by the rise of modern science. A new way of thinking, championed by figures like Newton and Descartes, began to dominate. This mechanistic model saw the universe as a giant, predictable clockwork, a collection of separate objects operating in a void of empty space, governed by strict cause and effect. In this paradigm, the cosmos was a cold, impersonal machine, and the intimate, symbolic connection between the macrocosm and microcosm was dismissed as primitive superstition. The above and the below were severed, and the universe became a place of separation, not unity. But just as this materialistic view seemed to have explained it all, science itself began to uncover a reality far stranger and more wondrous than anyone could have imagined. The birth of quantum physics in the early 20th century didn't just add new rules to the old game. It completely shattered the game board, revealing a subatomic realm that behaves nothing like the predictable world we experience. It is here, in this bizarre and counterintuitive domain, that the Hermetic principle of as above, so below finds a stunning and unexpected resurrection. To grasp this, we need to understand a few of quantum theory's most fundamental and mind-bending ideas. Let's start with wave-particle duality. In our everyday experience, something is either a particle, like a tiny marble, or a wave, like a ripple on a pond. But in the quantum world, things don't play by these rules. An electron or a photon of light isn't one or the other. It behaves as both a particle and a wave, and which quality it shows depends entirely on how we choose to observe it. It's as if a single actor backstage is both the lead role and the entire chorus, only deciding which part to play the moment the spotlight hits them. This inherent fluidity suggests that at its core, reality isn't made of solid, separate things, but of potentialities and probabilities, a concept that would feel very familiar to any mystic who speaks of a world emerging from a field of infinite possibilities. This leads us directly to superposition, arguably the most famous quantum oddity thanks to Schrödinger's cat. Superposition is the idea that a quantum system, like an electron, can exist in multiple states or locations at once until it is measured. It's not that we don't know where it is. It genuinely exists in a blurred state of here and there simultaneously. Imagine you're spinning a coin on a table. While it's spinning, it isn't definitively heads or tails. It is, in a very real sense, both. It only becomes one or the other when it lands and you look at it. In the same way, a quantum particle exists in a cloud of potential, a combination of all its possible states, only collapsing into a single, definite reality at the moment of observation. This places consciousness itself, the act of noticing, at the very center of the process of reality creation, a notion that profoundly echoes ancient spiritual teachings about the power of perception and awareness. And then there is the phenomenon that Albert Einstein famously dismissed as spooky action at a distance, quantum entanglement. This occurs when two particles become linked in such a way that the state of one instantly influences the state of the other, no matter how vast the distance between them. If you measure one entangled particle and find it spinning clockwise, its partner, even if it's on the other side of the galaxy, will immediately be found spinning counterclockwise. This connection happens faster than the speed of light, seemingly violating the fundamental law of locality, which says that objects can only be influenced by their immediate surroundings. This implies a deep, invisible level of connection that transcends space and time, a universe that is fundamentally non-local and holistic. It paints a picture of reality not as a collection of isolated parts, but as an inseparable web of relationships where every particle remains intimately linked to every other. This radical reimagining of reality finds one of its most compelling modern expressions in the holographic universe theory, a concept that feels as though it was pulled directly from the pages of an ancient Hermetic text. This idea proposes that our entire three-dimensional universe, with all its galaxies, stars, and seemingly solid matter, might actually be a projection, a kind of cosmic illusion generated from a two-dimensional surface at the very boundary of space. It's the ultimate expression of as above, so below. The entire macrocosm, in all its splendor, is encoded and contained within every single microcosmic part. The groundwork for this astonishing theory was laid by the brilliant and unconventional physicist David Bohm. Deeply troubled by the bizarre implications of quantum entanglement, Bohm couldn't accept the prevailing shut up and calculate attitude of many of his peers. He was searching for a deeper order, a hidden reality beneath the quantum weirdness. He proposed that what we perceive as separate particles are actually excitations or ripples on a deeper, unbroken background. He called this fundamental level the implicate order, a realm of enfolded potential where everything is connected in a state of wholeness. The world we see and measure, the explicate order, is just that potential unfolded into our familiar experience of time, space, and separate objects. In Bohm's view, the entire universe is a seamless whole, and the appearance of separation is the real illusion, a concept that resonates powerfully with mystical traditions across the globe. Independently, neuroscientist Karl Pribram was grappling with a completely different puzzle, the nature of memory in the brain. For decades, scientists had searched for the specific location of individual memories, assuming they were stored in particular cells or neural pathways, much like files saved to a specific spot on a hard drive. But decades of research yielded confusing results. Even when large portions of a rat's brain were removed, the animal could often still remember complex tasks. It was as if the memory wasn't stored in one place, but was somehow spread out everywhere. Pribram found the solution in the unique properties of a hologram. A hologram is a special kind of photograph made with laser light. If you take a photographic plate and record the interference patterns of laser light bouncing off an object, you create a hologram. Now, if you shine a laser through that plate, A three-dimensional image of the original object magically appears. But here's the truly mind-bending part. If you were to break that photographic plate into a dozen pieces, you wouldn't get a dozen fragments of the image. Incredibly, each and every single piece, no matter how small, contains all the information needed to reconstruct the entire image, just with lower resolution. The whole is literally enfolded within every part. Pribram realized the brain might be operating on the same principle. Memories aren't localized. They are distributed across the entire neural network, with each part containing a full, albeit less detailed, record of the whole. This explained the brain's remarkable resilience and capacity for memory. When Bohm and Pribram eventually combined their insights, a breathtaking synthesis emerged. If the brain is a hologram interpreting a holographic universe, then reality as we know it is a construct. The solidity of the chair you're sitting on, the vastness of the Andromeda galaxy, the sensation of your own breath, all of it could be a spectacularly detailed projection from a deeper level of reality, a cosmic source that is, in essence, a unified and undivided whole. This means the principle of as above, so below isn't just a poetic metaphor for similarity. It becomes a literal, functional description of the universe's operating system. Every particle, every leaf, every cell in your body contains the total information of the entire cosmos, just as every tiny fragment of a holographic plate holds the entire image. We are not just in the universe is in us. The macrocosm is not merely reflected in the microcosm, it is fully encoded within it. This perspective dissolves the hard line between the observer and the observed, between the inner world of consciousness and the outer world of physical reality, suggesting a profound and participatory unity that has been described by mystics for millennia and is now being mathematically modeled by physicists on the cutting edge of discovery. This idea of a holographic, interconnected reality finds perhaps its most visually stunning and mathematically precise expression in the elegant language of fractals. If you've ever looked at a head of broccoli, examined a snowflake, or traced the branching patterns of a river delta on a map, you've encountered a fractal. These are infinitely complex patterns that are self-similar across different scales, meaning a small piece of the pattern looks remarkably similar to the whole structure. This isn't just a vague resemblance, it's a precise mathematical repetition. The branching of a tiny twig mirrors the branching of the entire tree, and a single floret of a Romainsco broccoli is a perfect miniature of the entire vegetable. This is, as above, so below, rendered in geometry, a physical law where the microcosm genuinely contains the blueprint of the macrocosm. When we turn our gaze to the cosmos, this pattern repeats on a staggering scale. The cosmic web, the largest known structure in the universe, is a vast, gossamer network of galaxies and dark matter filaments. From a distance, it looks uncannily like a neural network in a human brain or the root system of a giant fungus. Zoom in on a single galaxy within that web, and you'll find it's not a random splatter of stars, but a magnificent spiral, with arms that themselves contain smaller spirals of gas and dust, all swirling in a gravitational dance that echoes the pattern of the whole. Even the turbulent, chaotic beauty of a nebula, a stellar nursery where stars are born, exhibits fractal properties, with densities and structures that repeat whether you're looking at a region light years across or just a few astronomical units wide. The universe builds itself using the same architectural blueprint, from the impossibly large to the vanishingly small. Now, prepare for a true leap of the imagination, because this fractal order doesn't stop at the edge of the visible world. It appears to extend right down into the bizarre, probabilistic realm of the quantum. Physicists studying the fabric of spacetime itself at the tiniest possible scale, a domain known as the Planck length, have proposed the existence of quantum foam. This isn't a literal substance, but a way of describing the seething, chaotic nature of reality at this level. Here, space-time is not smooth and continuous as we experience it. Instead, it's theorized to be a bubbling, fluctuating sea of virtual particles constantly popping into and out of existence. This foam is thought to have a fractal structure, an endless, turbulent churning where tiny bubbles of space-time form and dissolve in patterns that resemble the froth on an ocean wave, a pattern that repeats its essential form no matter how deeply you zoom in. This concept becomes even more compelling when we look at the paths that quantum particles take. Unlike a baseball arcing through the air in a clean, predictable parabola, a quantum particle's journey isn't a single line. According to Richard Feynman's famous sum over history's interpretation, a particle simultaneously takes every possible path from its starting point to its destination. The wondrous result of calculating all these infinite paths is the single, definitive outcome we observe. And when scientists model these infinite possible journeys, they don't get a tidy set of lines. They reveal a wildly complex, infinitely detailed pattern that is deeply fractal in nature. The journey of a single electron is a blurred, branching, self-similar cascade of possibilities, a microcosmic echo of the great cosmic web itself. This isn't just a beautiful coincidence. It points to a universe operating on a deeply unified set of rules. The same mathematical principles that describe the formation of galaxies and coastlines also describe the behavior of the quantum vacuum and the flow of energy. It suggests that the distinction of scale is, in a way, an illusion of our perception. There is no separate above and below governed by different laws. There is only one fundamental process of organization, one geometric language of creation, repeating its motifs from the grandest heights to the most humble depths. We are living in a universe that is fundamentally patterned, a cosmic artwork where every part, no matter how small, contains the signature of the whole. This phenomenon of quantum entanglement presents us with what might be the most literal scientific validation of the ancient principle we've encountered yet. Think about it. Two particles born from the same quantum event become inextricably linked, forming a single, unified system. Now, imagine separating them. You take one particle in a carefully shielded box and stay here on Earth, while your friend boards a starship and carries its partner to a planet orbiting a star in the Andromeda Galaxy, 2.5 million light-years away. According to our classical, mechanistic view of the universe, these two particles are now isolated individuals, incapable of influencing each other. Any signal sent between them would take millions of years to travel. But the quantum world laughs at this notion of separation. Back on Earth, you decide to measure the spin of your particle. The moment you do, its state collapses from a probability cloud into a definite reality, say, spin up. At that exact same instant, without any time lag whatsoever, the particle in Andromeda must snap into the opposite state, spin down. This isn't a delayed reaction. The information doesn't travel. The connection is immediate and transcends the very fabric of space and time. It's a unity that exists beneath the illusion of distance, a perfect mirroring of states that makes a mockery of the vast emptiness between them. This spooky action at a distance, as Einstein called it, is so unsettling because it fundamentally challenges our understanding of locality, the idea that objects are only influenced by their immediate surroundings. Entanglement suggests that the universe is, at its heart, non-local. There is a layer of reality where everything is still connected, where the concept of over here and over there simply doesn't apply. This isn't just a curious laboratory fact. It's a property that is now being harnessed for quantum computing and ultra-secure communication, proving its tangible, physical reality. Now, let's hold this scientific fact next to the spiritual and magical concept of interconnectedness. For millennia, mystical traditions from Buddhism to Kabbalah have taught that all of creation is a single, unified whole. They speak of an invisible web of life, an Indra's net of jewels where each gem reflects all the others, and a vibration in one is felt by all. In many forms of magic, particularly those rooted in the Hermetic principles we discussed, the law of correspondence as above, so below isn't a passive observation. It's an active tool. It's the foundational belief that by manipulating a small, symbolic representation of something, you can affect change in the larger system it corresponds to. A voodoo doll, a planetary talisman, or a simple spoken intention is believed to work because the microcosm and the macrocosm are not just similar, they are connected. Quantum entanglement provides a breathtakingly precise metaphor for this. In both cases, a change in one part of the system instantly reverberates through the whole, regardless of apparent separation. The magician performing a ritual and the physicist measuring a particle are both engaging with a universe that is fundamentally holistic. One does it through symbolism and focused consciousness, the other through lasers and superconducting magnets, but both are tapping into the same underlying principle, that distance is an illusion and connection is primal. This moves the idea from the realm of poetic metaphor into a startlingly literal parallel. It suggests that the magical principle of sympathy, where like affects like might not be mere superstition, but an intuitive human recognition of a quantum truth. When an ancient alchemist sought to transform lead into gold, they weren't just heating metal in a crucible. They were performing an operation on their own soul, believing the inner and outer worlds were entangled. The transformation of the base matter was inextricably linked to the refinement of the base self. Their laboratory was a stage for playing out this cosmic connection. This perspective invites a profound shift in how we view our own actions and their impact on the world. If the universe is genuinely non-local and entangled at a fundamental level, then every thought, every intention, and every action might ripple through this invisible network in ways we are only beginning to comprehend. It lends a new, scientific weight to the old spiritual idea that we are not isolated islands, but active participants in a deeply interconnected cosmic dance where what we do to others, we ultimately do to ourselves, because on some level, there is no real other. This brings us to one of the most profound and controversial questions at the intersection of quantum physics and spirituality, the role of consciousness itself. If the universe is truly this interconnected, participatory hologram, then what is the agency that does the participating? What is the force that causes the infinite possibilities of the quantum wave function to collapse into a single, tangible reality? The answer, according to some interpretations of quantum mechanics, points directly to the act of observation, and by extension, to consciousness. This isn't a fringe idea. It's a central puzzle known as the quantum measurement problem, and it suggests that mind and matter are not separate domains, but are fundamentally linked in the very fabric of existence. To understand this, let's return to our quantum particle in superposition. Remember, it exists in a blurred state of all its possible locations, spins, and energies, a probability wave described by the Schrödinger equation. This equation perfectly predicts how this wave of potential evolves over time. But the moment we set up a detector to measure the particle, something truly bizarre happens. That smooth, evolving wave of possibilities seems to violently collapse. It doesn't gradually settle into one state. It instantaneously snaps into a single, definite outcome. The question that has perplexed physicists for a century is, what exactly triggers this collapse? What is the precise difference between a particle being unobserved and observed? The traditional Copenhagen interpretation, formulated by Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg, essentially sidesteps the question. It posits that the wave function isn't a description of a physical reality, but a mathematical tool that represents our knowledge. The collapse in this view isn't a physical event but an update in our information. However, this leaves a glaring hole. Where do we draw the line between the quantum system and the classical measuring device? Is a photon detector conscious? What about a camera, a rock? This is known as the Heisenberg cut, and its arbitrary nature has led many physicists to seek a more satisfying explanation. This is where consciousness enters the stage, most famously through the work of Nobel laureate Eugene Wigner. Wigner proposed a thought experiment, an extension of Schrödinger's cat, that highlights the problem. Imagine a friend of yours goes into a lab and performs a measurement on a quantum system, say, determining the spin of an electron, until you ask your friend for the result. From your perspective, the entire lab, your friend, the equipment, and the electron is in a superposition of states. Your friend is in a state of having both seen spin up and spin down simultaneously. It is only when you, the conscious observer, interact with your friend and receive the information that the entire system collapses into one definite history. Wigner argued that this implies consciousness is the ultimate agency that collapses the wave function, placing the human mind at the very center of reality creation. This perspective finds startling support in modern variations of the famous double-slit experiment. In the classic setup, when you fire particles like electrons at a barrier with two slits, they don't behave like little bullets going through one hole or the other. Instead, they create an interference pattern on the back screen, a signature of wave behavior, as if each electron is going through both slits at once and interfering with itself. This is a clear demonstration of wave-like probability, but the real magic happens when you place a detector at one of the slits to see which path the electron actually takes. The moment you do this, the moment you attempt to observe the electron's path, the interference pattern vanishes. The electrons suddenly start behaving like well-behaved particles, going through one slit or the other, and the wave pattern is gone. It's as if the particle knows it's being watched and changes its behavior accordingly. More recent, even more mind-bending experiments have taken this further. In what's called a quantum eraser experiment, scientists can seemingly change events that have already happened in the past. They can set up an experiment to gather which path information, which destroys the interference pattern. But if they then erase that information after the particles have already hit the detector, but before anyone looks at the data, the interference pattern miraculously reappears. The particles seem to retroactively decide to have behaved like waves, not particles, based on a choice the experimenter makes in the future about whether to have the information available. This doesn't just suggest that observation affects reality. It implies that the distinction between past, present, and future is far more fluid than we thought, and that conscious intention can weave the tapestry of reality in a non-linear way. This creates a breathtaking bridge between the cold equations of physics and the inner world of spiritual awareness. For millennia, mystical traditions from Advaita Vedanta to Sufism have taught that consciousness is not a byproduct of the brain, but the fundamental ground of all being. They describe the material world as Maya, an illusion, a projection of consciousness, much like the holographic projection we discussed earlier. The goal of meditation and spiritual practice, in this view, is to realize your true nature as this pure awareness, the silent witness behind the dance of thoughts and sensations, and in doing so, to recognize that you are not in the universe, but that the universe is in you. The quantum measurement problem offers a startlingly parallel view from science. It suggests that consciousness is not a passive spectator, but an active participant in shaping reality. The act of observation isn't just seeing what is there. It is the very process that helps make it there. This doesn't mean we can simply wish things into existence with our thoughts, but it does imply that the universe requires a relationship, a dialogue between the observer and the observed to fully manifest. The microcosm of our conscious awareness and the macrocosm of physical reality are engaged in a constant, dynamic dance, each giving rise to the other in a loop of co-creation. This is, as above, so below, at its most intimate and powerful, the cosmos looking back at itself through our eyes, using our minds to bring its infinite potential into finite, beautiful form. Yet if we truly wish to bridge the gap between the cutting edge of theoretical physics and the heart of ancient mysticism, we must venture even further into a realm of existence that proposes not just four, but many more dimensions. This brings us to one of the most ambitious and mathematically elegant frameworks in all of science, string theory. At its core, string theory makes a radical proposal. It suggests that the fundamental building blocks of the universe are not zero-dimensional points, like dots, but tiny, vibrating, one-dimensional loops of energy infinitesimally small strings. And just like the strings on a violin or a guitar, how they vibrate, their specific frequency and mode determines what they become. One vibrational pattern might manifest as an electron, another as a quark, another as a photon of light. In this stunning vision, the entire symphony of the cosmos, every particle that makes up every atom in every star and every living thing, is played upon this orchestra of vibrating strings. The universe isn't just described by music, it is music. To make the mathematical equations of this theory work, however, physicists stumbled upon an extraordinary requirement. The strings cannot vibrate consistently in merely the three dimensions of space and one of time that we experience. For the theory to hold together, to avoid mathematical contradictions, the strings require extra dimensions to vibrate within. Early versions of string theory demanded 10 dimensions. Its most modern and unified incarnation, known as M-theory, requires 11. So where are these other 7 dimensions? The prevailing idea is that they are compactified or curled up into a space so incredibly tiny, on the scale of the Planck length, that they are completely hidden from our perception. Imagine a garden hose stretching off into the distance. From far away, it looks like a simple one-dimensional line. But if you could shrink down to the size of an ant and crawl onto it, you discover that this line has a second dimension, the circular dimension that wraps around the hose's circumference. String theory suggests that at every single point in our familiar four-dimensional spacetime, there are 6 or 7 additional spatial dimensions curled up into an intricate, complex shape called a Calabi-Yau manifold. Our entire reality is unfolding within a tiny, higher-dimensional origami we cannot see. Now, hold this scientific concept in your mind and turn your gaze to the vast treasury of esoteric and mystical teachings. For centuries, shamans, mystics, and practitioners of the occult have spoken of ascending through higher planes of existence, subtle realms of being that interpenetrate our own but operate under different laws. In Kabbalah, this is the journey up the tree of life through the 10 Sephiroth, each one a different emanation of divine energy and a different level of reality. In Theosophy and many Eastern traditions, we hear of the astral plane, the mental plane, and the causal plane, each more refined and less dense than the one below it. What is truly fascinating is that these are not described as places you travel to in a spaceship, but as states of consciousness you vibrate into. Accessing a higher plane is often described as raising one's vibrational frequency, shifting one's awareness to resonate with a more subtle and potent level of existence. The parallel to string theory is nothing short of breathtaking. In both models, different levels of reality are not separate locations, but different vibrational states. A string vibrating at one frequency creates a photon. Vibrating at another, it creates an electron. In the same way, a consciousness vibrating at one frequency might perceive the dense, physical world of cause and effect, while a consciousness vibrating at a much higher, finer frequency might perceive the luminous, interconnected realm of the astral or mental plane. The microcosm of the vibrating string and the macrocosm of the ascending soul are both governed by the same fundamental principle. Reality is a spectrum of vibration. The ancient Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, finds a powerful new expression here. The same vibrational logic that builds atoms also builds the architecture of the soul's journey. This idea expands into an even more profound possibility within the framework of M-theory and the concept of the multiverse. Some interpretations suggest that these different vibrational patterns of strings don't just create different particles in our universe. They could potentially create entirely different universes themselves, each with its own unique set of physical constants and laws. Our universe, with its specific force strengths and particle masses that allow for stars, planets, and life, might be just one possible tune that the cosmic strings can play. There could be a near infinite number of other universes, a vast multiverse, where the strings vibrate in completely different ways, producing realities that are utterly alien to our own. This cosmological vision mirrors esoteric concepts of a greater cosmos filled with innumerable worlds and planes, some similar to our own and some unimaginably different, all emanating from the same fundamental source. Whether we call that source the quantum vacuum, the implicate order, or the divine, the underlying idea is a unity that gives rise to an infinite, vibrating diversity. We are not just living in a universe, we are living in a multiverse of unimaginable scope, a symphony of existence where every possible melody is being played somewhere, and our conscious awareness is the listener that gives each one its particular meaning. But to truly grasp the full depth of this interconnected symphony, we must venture into the most fundamental layer of all, a background hum of existence so subtle that it was long thought to be mere emptiness. This is the quantum vacuum, often misunderstood as true nothingness. In reality, it is a seething, bubbling sea of potential, the very antithesis of empty. According to quantum field theory, what we perceive as a void is actually a vibrant plenum, filled with fleeting particles and antiparticles that pop into and out of existence in a continuous dance of creation and annihilation. This activity gives rise to the zero-point field, a foundational energy field that permeates all of space, even at absolute zero, the temperature at which all classical motion ceases. This field continues to vibrate with a residual, infinite energy. It is the canvas upon which the entire universe is painted, a field of pure potentiality from which every particle, every force, and every reality emerges. This scientific concept finds a stunning and profound parallel in one of the most enduring ideas from mystical tradition, the Akashic records. Found in theosophical and anthroposophical teachings, and with roots in ancient Hindu philosophy as Akasha, the Sanskrit word for ether or sky, the Akashic records are described as a non-physical realm, a cosmic library or imprint that contains all information. It is said to be a compendium of every thought, word, emotion, and event that has ever occurred or could ever occur across all of time and space. While often approached from a spiritual perspective for personal insight or past life exploration, the core idea is fundamentally about information. It posits that underlying our tangible reality is a field that records and holds all possible data, much like the cloud stores our digital information, but in a way that is intrinsic to the fabric of the cosmos itself. The connection between these two concepts, the zero-point field and the Akashic records, is where the principle of as above, so below reaches one of its most elegant expressions. The zero-point field, with its infinite energy and constant fluctuations, represents the below of the fundamental physical substrate that quantum physics is gradually mapping with mathematics. The Akashic records represent the above, the metaphysical, informational dimension that mystics have described for millennia? What if they are not two separate things, but two different ways of describing the same profound underlying reality? Both are conceptualized as all-pervading fields that exist beyond time and space. Both are seen as the source from which reality manifests. The zero-point field is a field of energetic potential, while the Akashic records are a field of informational potential. In a holographic universe, where energy and information are ultimately two sides of the same coin, these descriptions begin to converge into a single, breathtaking idea. Think of it like this. The zero-point field's fluctuations are the raw, unprocessed code of reality. The constant appearance and disappearance of virtual particles is like the flickering of ones and zeros on the most fundamental hard drive imaginable. The Akashic records could be seen as the organized, accessible database that this code generates the software that runs the simulation of our universe, containing every possible variable and outcome. When a quantum fluctuation manifests a particle, it is drawing from a field of infinite possibility to create a specific event. This is not unlike how an event is recorded in the Akashic field, imprinting itself onto the fabric of existence. The same underlying field that gives us the Casimir effect, a measurable force caused by zero-point energy pushing two plates together, could also be the medium that holds the informational blueprint for a galaxy, a thought, or a lifetime. This provides a powerful framework for understanding not only the unity of the cosmos, but also phenomena that conventional science struggles to explain, such as intuition, synchronicity, or collective consciousness. If all information is non-locally connected through this fundamental field, then accessing a piece of information doesn't require conventional sensory input. A sudden insight or a powerful premonition might not be supernatural at all, but simply a moment where an individual's consciousness momentarily tunes into a specific frequency of this universal information field, much like a radio receiver locking onto a specific station. The meaningful coincidences that Carl Jung called synchronicities could be understood as resonances within this field, where the inner state of an observer and an external event are connected because they share the same informational root in the Akasha. This isn't magic, it's physics operating at a level of sophistication we are only beginning to appreciate. It suggests that the separation between mind and matter, between the physical and the spiritual, is an illusion we create by only perceiving a narrow band of this vast informational reality. We're all immersed in an infinite ocean of data, and our consciousness is the instrument that interprets it into the experience we call life. Now, let's take this exploration from the cosmic to the deeply personal, to a principle that may just redefine how you approach your own goals and dreams. We've seen how the universe operates on a bedrock of interconnected potential, but how does that potential actually become reality? For an answer, we can look to one of the most peculiar and empowering phenomena in all of quantum physics, quantum tunneling. This is the bizarre process where a subatomic particle, like an electron, does the seemingly impossible. Imagine you're rolling a ball up a hill. In our everyday world, if the ball doesn't have enough energy to get over the top, it will roll back down. It's a classic, insurmountable barrier, but in the quantum realm, that same electron faced with an energy barrier it shouldn't be able to cross doesn't always bounce back. Astonishingly, it has a probability of simply appearing on the other side, as if it teleported through the mountain instead of going over it. It doesn't break through the barrier. It doesn't gather more energy. It literally takes a shortcut through it, accessing a pathway that exists only in the fuzzy realm of quantum probability. This isn't a rare fluke. It's a fundamental process that makes our very existence possible. The nuclear fusion that powers our sun relies on quantum tunneling. Protons in the sun's core have to overcome a tremendous barrier of electrical repulsion to get close enough to fuse. Classically, They shouldn't have enough energy to do it, and the sun wouldn't shine. But thanks to quantum tunneling, there's a probability that they will simply tunnel through that barrier, allowing fusion to happen and providing the energy for life on Earth. Your life is literally powered by particles, doing the impossible every second. So, what does this scientific marvel have to do with you and your life? It provides a stunningly precise metaphor for a concept at the heart of countless spiritual and manifestation practices. The idea that our focused intentions can help bring about outcomes that seem, from a logical, classical perspective, completely blocked by obstacles. Think about a goal you've had that felt out of reach. Perhaps it's a new career path that seems to require credentials you don't have, or a creative project that feels hampered by a lack of resources, or a personal healing that appears blocked by old patterns. Your rational mind, operating like classical physics, surveys the situation, sees the mountain in the way, and concludes it's impossible. It calculates the energy required and finds you wanting. This is the voice of doubt, the voice of the visible barrier. But what if, like the electron, you aren't limited to just one path? What if the universe offers probabilistic shortcuts? This is where the practice of manifestation enters the picture. When you set a powerful, clear intention, you are not merely wishing upon a star. You are, in a sense, aligning your personal wave function with a desired outcome. You are focusing your consciousness on a specific probability within the infinite field of potential. You are not trying to muster the Herculean force to bash through the barrier. Instead, you are tuning into the possibility that the barrier may not be as solid as it appears from a limited perspective. You are essentially declaring, my reality is not yet fixed. There is a potential version of events where this obstacle is already bypassed, and I am choosing to collapse my wave function into that timeline. This is not about magical thinking or denying the existence of challenges. It is about shifting your relationship to those challenges. The electron doesn't deny the energy barrier exists. It simply interacts with it differently, recognizing that at a quantum level, the barrier is more like a cloud of probability than a solid wall. In the same way, effective manifestation involves holding your vision of the desired outcome with such clarity and emotional resonance that you begin to vibrate at that frequency. This heightened state of focus makes you more sensitive to opportunities, synchronicities, and insights, the tunnels that were always there in the field of potential, but were invisible to you when you were solely focused on the immensity of the barrier itself. You start to notice the right person, the perfect piece of information, the unexpected resource. It feels like luck, but it's more like resonance. The practical techniques found in many traditions, from visualization and affirmations to vision boards and gratitude journals, can be seen as tools to achieve this quantum alignment. They are not about begging the universe for favors. They are exercises in collapsing possibility. When you vividly visualize your goal as already achieved, you are not lying to yourself. You are performing a conscious act of wave function collapse, pulling a future potential into your present moment awareness. You are rehearsing the reality you wish to inhabit, and in doing so, you are strengthening its probability. Your subconscious mind, which doesn't distinguish vividly imagined events from physical ones, begins to accept this new reality as truth and guides your actions accordingly, making choices that consistently move you toward that tunnel exit. The obstacle hasn't vanished, but your path through it or around it has become your dominant reality. You have, in a very real sense, quantum tunneled to your desired destination. This same dance of geometry plays out in the most fundamental structures of matter itself. When we descend into the realm of quantum chemistry, we discover that the very molecules that constitute our reality are not arranged randomly. They are built upon an invisible scaffolding of geometric perfection. Consider the humble water molecule, H2O. The two hydrogen atoms bond to the single oxygen atom at a very specific angle, of approximately 104.5 degrees. This isn't an arbitrary number. It's the precise angle that minimizes repulsive forces and maximizes stability, creating a distinct V shape. But this shape is the foundational building block for something far more complex. When multiple water molecules come together through hydrogen bonding, they naturally arrange themselves into hexagonal patterns. This is why every single snowflake, without exception, displays a six-fold symmetry. That stunning diversity of icy patterns you see under a microscope is all a variation on a hexagonal theme, a direct manifestation of the geometric rules written into the quantum bonds between atoms. This principle extends to the very architecture of life. The carbon atom, the backbone of biology, has a unique electron configuration that allows it to form four strong bonds. In its quest for stability, it arranges those bonds in the shape of a tetrahedron, a three-dimensional pyramid with four triangular faces. This is not just any shape. It is one of the five Platonic solids, forms that the ancient Greek philosopher Plato believed were the building blocks of the universe. He assigned the tetrahedron to the element of fire for its sharpness and energy, and indeed, we find this fiery, fundamental shape at the heart of organic chemistry. The tetrahedral geometry of carbon's bonds is the reason for the mind-boggling complexity and diversity of life, from the structure of diamond to the double helix of our DNA, which itself coils in a graceful spiral, a form known as the golden spiral that is intimately related to the Fibonacci sequence. This harmony becomes even more explicit when we examine crystal structures. The entire mineral kingdom is a testament to sacred geometry. Atoms and ions packed together in repeating three-dimensional lattices that form perfect cubes, hexagons, and octahedrons. The cubic structure of salt crystals, the hexagonal columns of basalt at the Giant's Causeway, and the perfect octahedral shape of a refined diamond, all of these are macroscopic expressions of the geometric potentials locked within quantum forces. The invisible rules of atomic attraction and repulsion give rise to a visible world of crystalline perfection, a direct physical manifestation of mathematical ideals. Now, let's pull our perspective back from the microcosm to the macrocosm, from the world of molecules to the architecture of galaxies. The same geometric patterns emerge on a scale so vast it defies human comprehension. Spiral galaxies, like our own Milky Way, are perhaps the most stunning example. Their majestic arms, swirling with billions of stars, trace a logarithmic spiral pattern, the same kind of spiral we see in the nautilus shell and the head of a sunflower, a pattern governed by the Fibonacci sequence. This is not a vague resemblance. It is a mathematical inevitability. The dynamics of gravitational forces acting upon a rotating disk of matter naturally produce this spiral structure. The same force that holds a water molecule together also sculpts the grandest designs in the cosmos. This geometric echo continues in the large-scale structure of the universe. The cosmic web, that vast network of galaxies and dark matter filaments, when mapped by astronomers, reveals a startlingly cellular structure. The empty voids are surrounded by thin walls and filaments of galaxies, which in turn intersect at dense nodes. This great cosmic architecture bears an uncanny resemblance to the neural networks of a human brain, the mycelial networks of fungi, and even the froth on a cup of coffee. These are all examples of natural structures that form through a process of energy minimization and equilibrium seeking, whether it's gravity shaping the universe or electrochemical signals shaping a brain. The universe, it seems, has a favorite set of blueprints, and it uses them at every conceivable scale. This is where the Hermetic principle transcends metaphor and enters the realm of physical law. It is not that the galaxy is like an atom or that a crystal is like a city. It is that the same mathematical principles, the same solutions to the problems of stability efficiency, and structure under pressure express themselves universally. The tetrahedral carbon atom and the tetrahedral configuration of galaxies within a cluster are both solutions to the problem of how to most efficiently pack and stabilize units within a field of force. The spiral of a galaxy and the spiral of a DNA molecule are both the most efficient and stable ways to organize and pack information and energy within a rotating system. The universe speaks a geometric language, and from the quantum foam to the cosmic web, it is telling the same story of infinite connection and harmonic design. We are not just living in a universe of matter and energy, but in a universe of shape and form, a great geometric thought made manifest. So what does all this look like in the living, breathing reality of our daily lives? We've explored the cosmos and the quantum realm, but these principles become truly transformative when we see them at work in our own bodies and our own choices. Consider for a moment the very process of sight. When a single photon of light enters your eye and strikes a molecule in your retina called rhodopsin, a truly quantum event occurs. That photon's energy causes a specific chemical bond within the molecule to isomerize, to change shape. But here's the magic. This process is so sensitive and happens so efficiently that it's been shown to involve quantum tunneling. The energy transfer is so finely tuned that it leverages the probabilistic nature of the quantum world to achieve near-perfect efficiency. Your ability to see this sentence right now is powered by a biological system that harnesses quantum mechanics. It's not just in lab equipment, it's in you. This field of quantum biology is revealing that life doesn't just exist in the universe. It actively uses the universe's deepest rules. Another stunning example is in the navigational skills of birds. Species like the European robin migrate thousands of miles with astonishing accuracy. For years, scientists hypothesized they used the Earth's magnetic field, but a puzzle remained. The field is too weak to trigger a chemical reaction in the bird's eye through classical means alone. The emerging theory points to quantum entanglement. It's proposed that a photon entering the bird's eye creates a pair of entangled electrons in a protein called cryptochrome. The spin states of these electrons are exquisitely sensitive to the orientation of the Earth's magnetic field, acting like a microscopic quantum compass. The bird doesn't calculate its path. It feels it through a direct quantum sensory connection to the planet itself. This is, as above, so below, in its most active form, a creature utilizing the non-local connections of the quantum realm to navigate the macrocosm of the entire globe. Now, translate this to the human experience. If a bird's intention to navigate can engage with quantum reality, what might the power of our own focused attention and intention be capable of? This brings us to the practical heart of everyday magic. Think about a time you walked into a room and immediately felt a tense atmosphere. No words were spoken, yet you felt it. Or a moment when you knew someone was looking at you from across a crowded space. These are subtle, often dismissed experiences, but they hint at a layer of interconnected perception that operates outside our standard five senses. It suggests that our consciousness isn't locked inside our skulls, but is a field of awareness that can interact with other fields, much like those entangled electrons in the bird's eye. This is where mindfulness and meditation transition from vague self-help concepts into tangible practices of reality interaction. When you sit in meditation and focus on your breath, you are doing far more than just relaxing. You are practicing the art of focused observation. You are training your consciousness to hold a single point of attention without judgment or distraction. In the language of quantum physics, you are learning to collapse your personal wave function with deliberate precision. Each time you notice your mind has wandered and gently bring it back to your breath, you are strengthening your capacity as a conscious observer. You are building the mental muscle to choose your reality, moment by moment. The implications of this practice extend into the very structure of your brain. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections, is physically shaped by where you place your attention. Studies on experienced meditators show increased gray matter density in regions associated with awareness, emotional regulation, and empathy. Your sustained intention to be present literally rewires the organic hardware of your consciousness. You are not just thinking different thoughts, you are sculpting a different instrument of perception, one that may become more sensitive to the subtle probabilities and connections in the quantum field around you. This is the microcosm of your brain changing to better reflect the macrocosmic principle of interconnectedness. Apply this to a personal goal. Let's say you have a daunting project ahead of you. The classical view sees the mountain of work, the deadlines, the potential for failure. It sees the solid barrier. The quantum-minded approach, informed by these principles, starts not with the barrier, but with the desired outcome. You close your eyes and vividly visualize the project completed. You feel the satisfaction. You hear the words of congratulations. You immerse yourself in the emotional frequency of success. This act isn't escapism. It's a conscious collapse of possibility. By holding that specific potential reality in your mind with clarity and emotional resonance, you begin to tune your entire being to that frequency. You become like a radio receiver, suddenly able to perceive the opportunities, resources, and ideas, the quantum tunnels that were always there but were invisible to you when you were solely fixated on the immensity of the obstacle. Your focused intention hasn't magically erased the challenge, but it has fundamentally altered your relationship to it, allowing you to navigate through it with a grace that seems, from the outside, almost miraculous. This is the observer effect in everyday magic. It is the practiced art of using your awareness not just to witness your life, but to participate in its beautiful quantum unfolding. This concept of a fluid reality shaped by observation leads us directly to one of the most profound and mind-expanding ideas in all of modern physics, the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. If a particle can truly be in multiple states at once, if that electron is both here and there, spinning up and down simultaneously, then what happens when we, the conscious observers, make a measurement and force it to choose? According to the orthodox Copenhagen interpretation, the wave function collapses into a single outcome, and all the other possibilities vanish into nothingness. But to physicists like Hugh Everett in the 1950s, this idea of collapse seemed arbitrary and unsatisfying. He proposed a radically different and much more logical solution. The wave function doesn't collapse at all. Instead, at the moment of observation, the entire universe splits. In one branch of reality, you see the electron spinning up, but in another, equally real branch, a version of you sees it spinning down. Both possibilities are realized, but they unravel into separate, non-communicating streams of existence. Every single quantum event, from the decay of an atom to the firing of a neuron in your brain, becomes a fork in the road, creating a constantly branching multiverse of every possible outcome. This isn't science fiction. It's a serious, mathematically consistent framework that an increasing number of physicists are taking seriously. The implications are staggering. It suggests that for every choice you've ever made, no matter how small, there is another version of you living out the path you didn't take, that casual decision to turn left instead of right, that word you said or didn't say. Each one created a new universe. In one reality, you pursued that crazy dream and became an artist. In another, you played it safe and stayed at the office job. The you that is experiencing this video right now is simply the one traveling along one specific thread in an infinite tapestry of possibilities. This scientific theory holds a startling mirror to ancient mystical and esoteric concepts of alternate timelines and parallel lives. ideas that have been part of shamanic journeys and occult teachings for centuries. The Kabbalistic tree of life, for instance, can be seen not as a single static map, but as a representation of innumerable potential paths of descent for divine energy and ascent for the soul, each sephira containing entire universes of experience. So if an infinite number of versions of us are living out every conceivable life, what determines the specific reality we find ourselves in? This is where the bridge between quantum physics and conscious choice becomes incredibly powerful. In the many worlds view, there is no mysterious collapse. There is only decoherence, where the different branches cease to interact. But from our limited, first-person perspective, it certainly feels like we are making choices that define a single, linear timeline. This is where the concept of selective attention comes into play. Your consciousness isn't creating a single reality out of nothing. It is more like a radio tuner, selectively focusing on and amplifying one specific frequency out of the infinite broadcast of the multiverse. Your beliefs, your emotions, your dominant thoughts, and most importantly, your actions are all part of that tuning mechanism. They don't create the other stations, but they determine which one you are listening to and therefore experiencing as your solid reality. Think of your life as a vast, uncharted forest with an infinite number of paths. You are constantly walking, constantly making choices at every intersection. The forest itself contains every possible path, the easy trails, the difficult climbs, the dead ends, and the breathtaking vistas. Your state of being, your energy, your focus, your fears, and your passions acts as your internal compass. When you are vibrating at a frequency of fear and lack, your compass needle swings toward the paths in the forest that reflect that back to you. The rocky ground, the low-hanging branches, the confusing thickets. But when you consciously choose to shift your state to one of gratitude, love, and abundance, you are recalibrating your compass. You begin to notice the sun-dappled trails, the hidden streams, and the clearings with amazing views that were always there, just on a different path. You haven't erased the other parts of the forest. You've simply started walking a different route within the same infinite woods. Your conscious awareness is the navigator, and your choices are the steps that keep you firmly on one particular branching path of reality, experiencing it as your undeniable truth. This perspective takes us to the very edge of where physics and philosophy merge, inviting us to consider a possibility that inverts our entire conventional understanding. What if consciousness is not a rare and fragile flame sparked by the complexity of the human brain, but is instead a fundamental, primary feature of the cosmos itself? For decades, the dominant scientific view has been that consciousness is emergent, a fascinating but secondary byproduct of neural computation, much like steam is a byproduct of boiling water. But this materialist stance runs into profound difficulties, known collectively as the hard problem of consciousness, which questions how and why subjective experience, the redness of red, the feeling of awe should arise from mere matter and motion. It's a gap that physical processes alone have never adequately explained. An alternative and increasingly compelling theory suggests that consciousness is not emergent, but fundamental. In this view, consciousness is a basic property of reality, as fundamental as space, time, and mass. It is the canvas upon which the universe is painted, not a painting that appears on the canvas. This is not a New Age concept, but a serious proposal explored by figures like physicist and philosopher John Archibald Wheeler, who suggested that reality arises from acts of observation, and more recently, by thinkers like Donald Hoffman, whose interface theory of perception proposes that what we see is not objective reality, but a simplified user interface shaped by evolution to high underlying complex truth. In this model, consciousness is the sole fundamental reality, and the physical world is its projection. This scientific idea finds its most direct and powerful parallel in the spiritual concept of the universal mind or cosmic consciousness. From the Hindu concept of Brahman, the ultimate reality from which all things emanate, to the Buddhist idea of a ground of being that is pure awareness, to the Neoplatonic concept of the One, mystics have consistently described a unified field of consciousness that undergirds all of manifestation. This is not a personal God, but an impersonal, infinite, intelligent awareness that is the source of all. The microcosm of our individual awareness, in this view, is not separate from this macrocosmic source. It is more like a whirlpool in a vast ocean, a temporary, localized pattern of movement, but never for a moment separate from the water itself. Our sense of being an isolated self is the illusion. The fundamental reality is our unity with this field of conscious intelligence. The mechanism for this connection might be understood through the lens of resonance, just as a tuning fork vibrating at a specific frequency will cause another tuning fork across the room to hum at the same pitch. Our individual consciousness may be a specific resonance of the universal field. Our brains, with their intricate neural networks, may not be generators of consciousness, but rather receivers or transducers, fine-tuned to filter and translate this fundamental consciousness into our personal, subjective experience. This would explain why altering the brain's chemistry with psychedelics or meditation can so dramatically alter perception. It's not creating consciousness, but changing the receiver's tuning, allowing us to pick up broader or different bandwidths of the cosmic signal. A brain injury might damage the receiver, distorting the signal, but it doesn't prove the receiver created the signal any more than smashing a radio proves it created the symphony it was playing. This framework provides a beautiful and elegant explanation for phenomena like intuition, telepathy, and transcendent mystical experiences. When a scientist has a sudden flash of insight that solves a complex problem, it may not be solely the result of unconscious neural processing. It could be a moment of resonant alignment, where their individual mind momentarily tunes into a broader field of information and intelligence. When two people deeply connected report knowing what the other is thinking, it may not be magic, but a temporary synchronization of their receivers, allowing them to access a shared informational field. The profound states of unity and boundless love reported by mystics and meditators could be experiences of their consciousness shifting its resonance away from the narrow frequency of the individual ego and toward the fundamental frequency of the universal field itself, realizing their true nature not as a drop in the ocean, but as the entire ocean in a drop. This brings us to one of the most profound implications of the quantum measurement problem, the nature of time itself and the powerful, almost sacred, significance of the present moment. Within the mathematics of quantum mechanics, the wave function evolves in a smooth, deterministic way, governed by the Schrödinger equation. In this description, past, present, and future are not separate. All possibilities exist in a vast, timeless sea of potential. There is no special now, but then something happens, an observation is made, a measurement occurs, and in that instant, the seamless flow of probability seems to rupture. The infinite potential of the wave function collapses into a single, concrete fact. A particle is here, with this spin, in this state. This transition is the quantum origin of what we experience as the definite past and the uncertain future, with the sharp, undeniable reality of the present moment slicing between them. This scientific process offers a stunning parallel to spiritual teachings from across the ages that place immense importance on the power of present moment awareness. In mindfulness practices, the goal is to anchor one's attention firmly in the now, to observe the flow of thoughts and sensations without judgment. This is not merely a technique for reducing stress, it is a disciplined practice of becoming a pure observer. In the language of quantum physics, each moment of mindful awareness is a micro-act of wave function collapse. By focusing your consciousness on the immediate reality of your breath, the feeling of the air on your skin, or the sound in the room, you are, in a sense, repeatedly choosing a single reality from the field of possibilities that your mind constantly generates. You are collapsing the potential for anxiety about the future or regret about the past into the solid ground of the present. The mystical experience of enlightenment or awakening, described in traditions like Zen Buddhism or Advaita Vedanta, can be seen as the ultimate mastery of this collapse. It is the profound realization that the observer, the pure awareness that is the true self, is not located in time at all. This awareness is the timeless, unchanging background against which the continuous collapse of the wave function of experience unfolds. An enlightened being is said to reside permanently in this state of witnessing, no longer identified with the constantly shifting content of thoughts and sensations, which are like the never-resolved probabilities of the quantum field. They abide as the consciousness that does the collapsing, rather than being the collapsed content itself. This perspective even provides a fascinating lens through which to view the flow of time itself. Why does time seem to move inexorably forward, from a fixed past to an open future? The physicist's concept of decoherence explains how quantum systems become entangled with their environment, making superpositions effectively irreversible and creating an arrow of time. But from the first-person perspective, the arrow of time may be a direct result of the continuous, sequential nature of conscious observation. Each act of perception is a collapse that defines a new now, and the accumulation of these collapsed states creates the linear narrative we call our lives. Our consciousness is not moving through time. It is generating the experience of time through its perpetual activity of converting possibility into actuality. The present moment is not a point we are passing through. It is the very edge of creation itself, the leading tip of reality, where the future is continuously being woven into the tapestry of the past by the luminous thread of awareness. This conversation between the microscopic and the macroscopic takes on an even deeper dimension when we explore the emerging field of quantum biology, which reveals that life itself is a master of the quantum realm. For decades, we assumed the strange rules of quantum mechanics were confined to the frigid, controlled environments of physics labs, isolated from the warm, wet, and messy world of living organisms. How could delicate quantum states, like coherence or entanglement, possibly survive the constant bombardment and decohering noise inside a living cell? The answer, it turns out, is that life has been leveraging these effects for billions of years, and it does so with an elegance that our best technology is only beginning to mimic. This discovery doesn't just rewrite biology textbooks. It opens a stunning dialogue with ancient spiritual maps of the human energy body. Let's start with one of the most well-documented examples, photosynthesis. Plants, algae, and some bacteria perform this miraculous feat, converting sunlight into chemical energy with near-perfect efficiency. For years, the process was a mystery. When a photon of sunlight is absorbed by a molecule in a leaf, it creates an exciton, a packet of energy that needs to travel to a specific reaction center to be used. Classically, this journey should be a random walk, a haphazard bouncing through the forest of molecules. It would be slow and wasteful, losing much of the energy as heat. But that's not what happens. Experiments have shown that this energy transfer is astonishingly efficient. The secret appears to be quantum coherence. The exciton doesn't take a single path. It behaves like a wave, exploring all possible pathways through the photosynthetic complex simultaneously. It effectively performs a quantum search, finding the most efficient route to its destination almost instantly. The plant is using quantum superposition to harness the sun's power. This isn't a passive process. It's a dynamic, quantum-assisted dance that is fundamental to life on Earth. Now let's journey from the leaf to the sky, to the mysterious navigational prowess of migratory birds. Species like the European robin travel thousands of miles between continents with pinpoint accuracy, often navigating on overcast nights when stars are hidden. They possess an internal compass, and for a long time, scientists knew it was based on the Earth's faint magnetic field, but the puzzle was the mechanism. The energy of the geomagnetic field is incredibly weak, far too faint to trigger a chemical reaction through classical means alone. The leading theory points squarely to quantum entanglement. It's proposed that light enters the bird's eye and strikes a protein called cryptochrome. This light energy creates a pair of electrons that become quantum entangled. The spin states of these electrons are exquisitely sensitive to the orientation of the Earth's magnetic field. As the field changes, it influences the electron's spins, which in turn alters the chemical state of the protein, sending a signal to the bird's brain. This isn't a calculation, it's a direct sensory feeling, a quantum sense. The bird is literally perceiving the world through a mechanism that relies on spooky action at a distance, allowing it to tune into the planet's invisible magnetic grid. This is where our scientific exploration collides with profound spiritual intuition. For millennia, cultures across the globe have described a vital energy that animates all living things. In China, it's called Kai or Kai. In India, it's known as prana. In Japan, Kai. This life force is said to flow through invisible channels in the body meridians in traditional Chinese medicine or nadis in yogic philosophy, and pool at powerful centers of energy known as chakras. From a classical, materialist perspective, these concepts were dismissed as pre-scientific metaphor, but quantum biology invites us to consider a startling possibility. What if these ancient systems are not describing a mystical fantasy, but are instead mapping a subtle, quantum, coherent energy body that Western science is only now discovering? The hyper-efficient, wave-like energy transfer in photosynthesis mirrors descriptions of prana flowing smoothly through the nadis. The idea of a coherent energy field within the body that organizes and animates physical processes is a central tenet of both quantum biology and spiritual energy work. The bird's quantum compass, a mechanism that allows it to sense and navigate using a global energy field, feels eerily similar to our own subtle energy body's hypothesized ability to interact with larger environmental and cosmic energies. The chakras themselves are often described as whirling vortices or oscillators that take in universal energy and step it down to frequencies the physical body can use. This sounds less like mythology and more like a description of a sophisticated biological transducer, potentially operating on quantum principles to interface with the fundamental field of the universe. This isn't to say that a chakra is a simple quantum object, but rather that the entire system of subtle energy could be an emergent property of quantum coherent processes happening at a cellular and molecular level. The water molecules that make up most of our bodies are perfect mediums for quantum effects, and the structured fascia of our connective tissue could act as a waveguide for coherent energy transfer. When a yogi or qigong master speaks of moving energy through their body, they may be consciously directing these subtle quantum processes, enhancing coherence and facilitating healing. The reported sensations of warmth, tingling, or current during energy work could be the subjective experience of this quantum organized energy flow. Science and spirituality, in this light, are not describing two different realities, but are using different languages to describe the same profound truth, that life is a quantum phenomenon, and our consciousness is intimately woven into its energetic fabric. We are not just mechanical bodies. We are walking, talking quantum coherent systems, continuously engaged in a silent, luminous conversation with the field of intelligence that sustains the entire cosmos. This idea of a brain that operates like a hologram invites a profound and startling possibility about the very nature of our reality. If our neural hardware is built to decode a universe of interference patterns, what does that suggest about the world we perceive? The theory proposed by figures like Karl Pribram and David Bohm suggests that the universe itself may be a kind of cosmic hologram. In this view, the objective, solid world of separate objects we experience is a magnificent construction, a detailed translation performed by our brains. The raw data our senses receive might not be a direct readout of reality, but more like the laser light shining through a holographic film, interpreting a deeper, implicate order of interconnected frequencies into the explicate order of our four-dimensional spacetime. We are not passive receivers of a pre-made world. We are active participants in a continuous process of holographic reconstruction, building our reality moment by moment from a sea of underlying potential. This neurological architecture provides a powerful biological basis for some of the most profound experiences reported by mystics, meditators, and individuals undergoing non-ordinary states of consciousness, the direct perception of unity. During deep meditation, psychedelic journeys, or spontaneous peak experiences, people often describe a complete dissolution of the boundary between the self and the universe. The sense of being a separate observer located inside a skull vanishes, replaced by an overwhelming feeling of being one with everything, a boundless awareness that is both infinite and intimate. From the holographic perspective, this could be understood as a temporary shift in the brain's filtering and processing mechanisms. Normally, our cognitive machinery is expertly tuned to highlight differences, boundaries, and separate objects. It creates the convincing illusion of a subject observing a world of distinct objects. This is an incredibly useful tool for navigating physical reality and ensuring survival. But what if certain practices or substances can quiet this default mode of processing? If the brain's usual job is to focus the laser of our attention on specific, decoded fragments of the hologram, these states might represent a broadening or diffusion of that laser. Instead of focusing on the reconstructed image of a single tree, the brain's processing might expand to take in more of the entire interference pattern itself. In doing so, the perception of separate objects begins to soften, fade, and ultimately dissolve, revealing the underlying unified field from which they are all projected. The mystic who experiences becoming one with the cosmos is not hallucinating. They may be perceiving a more fundamental, less processed layer of reality. Their brain has temporarily stopped constructing the convincing illusion of separation and is instead allowing the deep, interconnected nature of the implicate order to be consciously known. It's not that the tree disappears, it's that the profound truth of its inseparability from everything else becomes undeniably obvious. This shift in perception is often accompanied by intense feelings of awe, love, and a sense of sacredness, which we might also understand through this lens. The brain's limbic system, which governs emotion, is deeply interwoven with its perceptual centers. When the usual cognitive models of a separate self and a threatening world of other objects dissolve, the emotional response tied to that model, often based on fear, desire, and defense, can also fall away. What arises in its place can be a pure, unconditioned emotional response to the direct experience of unity itself, a state that feels like coming home to a reality that is ultimately benevolent, intelligent, and whole. The holographic model doesn't reduce these experiences to mere brain chemistry. It provides a plausible interface through which the fundamental unity of the cosmos can be translated into human experience, offering a stunning convergence of neuroscience, physics, and the perennial wisdom found at the heart of the world's spiritual traditions. This notion of coherence, where countless individual particles begin to act as a single, harmonious system, offers a stunning scientific metaphor for one of the most sought-after states in spiritual practice, the experience of profound inner alignment. In the quantum world, coherence is a fragile and precious state. Imagine a choir where every singer is wildly off-key and singing a different tune. The result is just noise. But when a director steps in and guides them, they begin to sing the same note in perfect unison. Their individual voices don't disappear, but they blend into a single, powerful chord that is far greater than the sum of its parts. This is what happens in a laser. Ordinary light is incoherent. Its photons are out of phase, a chaotic jumble of waves interfering with each other. But inside a laser, they are stimulated to emit in lockstep, creating a beam of coherent light that is powerful, focused, and capable of feats impossible for scattered light. Our own consciousness, in its default state, can often feel like that chaotic, incoherent light. Our thoughts are a scattered chorus of worries about the future, regrets about the past, and random distractions, all pulling our energy in different directions. This internal noise creates a sense of fragmentation and dissonance, a feeling of being at odds with ourselves and the world. The goal of many spiritual disciplines, be it meditation, prayer, or mindful movement, is to become the director of that internal choir. Through focused attention on the breath, a mantra, or a single point of awareness, we begin to gently guide the scattered voices of the mind toward a common focus. We are not trying to silence the singers, but to harmonize them. As we practice, the mental chatter begins to settle. The waves of thought start to synchronize, and we move from a state of noise toward a state of inner coherence. When this internal coherence is achieved, even momentarily, a remarkable shift occurs. The boundary between the inner self and the outer world begins to feel less rigid. This is because a coherent system is not just harmonious internally, it also becomes more sensitive and receptive to external information. A tuned radio receiver can pick up a clear signal from a distant station, while a jumble of random wiring just produces static. In the same way, a mind that has achieved a degree of coherence through meditation becomes a finer instrument for perceiving the subtle patterns of the world around it. This is the state often described as flow, or being in the zone, where action and awareness merge, and a person feels seamlessly connected to their activity. It's a feeling of effortless action, where the right decisions seem to arise intuitively, as if one is tapping into a broader intelligence. This experience mirrors the quantum phenomenon, where coherent particles can become entangled, their fates inextricably linked across space. In a state of deep spiritual alignment, an individual's consciousness can feel entangled with the larger patterns of life. It's that profound sense of being in exactly the right place at the right time, of encountering meaningful synchronicities, or feeling a deep, intuitive understanding of a situation without logical explanation. This isn't about controlling external events, but about achieving an internal state of such clarity and resonance that one naturally synchronizes with the harmonious rhythms of the cosmos. The individual wave function of the self hasn't vanished. It has simply become phase-locked with a much vaster, more intelligent wave. In this coherent state, we don't need to force our will upon the world. We simply align with its fundamental unity, and in doing so, we find our actions are carried forward by the current of a deeper cosmic order. Yet this apparent void is anything but empty. It is a seething, dynamic sea of potential, a state of minimum energy that is paradoxically brimming with activity. Quantum field theory reveals that this vacuum is alive with fluctuations. At scales so tiny they defy imagination, pairs of virtual particles and their antiparticles spontaneously blink into existence, borrowing energy from the vacuum itself for an impossibly brief moment before annihilating each other and returning that energy to the void. This isn't a theoretical fantasy. It's a measurable phenomenon with real-world effects, like the Casimir force, where two uncharged metal plates placed incredibly close together in a vacuum are gently pushed together by the pressure of these virtual particles popping into being outside them. The void is not a sterile absence, it is a fertile ground, a plenum of infinite potential from which the entire tapestry of the universe is continuously woven. This scientific portrait of a creative void finds a profound and ancient echo in spiritual traditions across the globe. In Taoism, this concept is beautifully captured by the idea of Wu Jai, the undifferentiated, limitless void that precedes the duality of yin and yang. It is the silent, fertile emptiness from which the 10,000 things, all of manifested reality, spontaneously arise. Buddhist philosophy delves deeply into the concept of sunyata, often translated as emptiness. This is not a nihilistic nothingness, but rather the liberating understanding that all phenomena are empty of a separate, independent existence. Things do not exist in isolation. They arise interdependently, their form and substance emerging from a vast, interconnected web of causes and conditions, much like virtual particles emerging from the quantum field. This emptiness is not a blank void to be feared, but the very source of all potential and freedom. The practical application of this wisdom is the cornerstone of many meditation practices. The goal is not to blank the mind or achieve a state of thoughtless oblivion. Rather, it is to consciously settle into a state of inner stillness, to create a psychological and energetic space of quiet receptivity. In this state, we are not doing, we are being. We are allowing the constant chatter of the mind, the internal narrative of planning, worrying, and remembering, to settle, much like letting the silt in a jar of muddy water settle to the bottom to reveal the clear water above. In creating this inner silence, we are not cultivating a lack, but making room for a different kind of knowing to emerge. We are aligning ourselves with the creative potential of our own inner vacuum. From this place of cultivated inner emptiness, insights and inspirations can spontaneously arise, seemingly from nowhere. A solution to a problem that hours of frantic thinking could not solve suddenly appears in a flash of clarity during a quiet walk. A creative idea, a moment of profound compassion, or a deep sense of peace bubbles up from this stillness. This is not magic. It is the human experience of tapping into that same fundamental creative principle that operates in the quantum vacuum. When we still the noise of our conscious agenda, we become better receivers for the subtle signals of the unconscious mind and the intuitive intelligence that connects us to a wider field of information. Our focused stillness acts as the catalyst, the observational act that allows a new possibility to collapse from the field of potential into our conscious awareness. We are, in a very real sense, practicing the art of conscious manifestation on a personal scale, mirroring the cosmic creativity of the vacuum itself. By valuing emptiness and learning to rest in stillness, we do not withdraw from life. We learn to participate in it more deeply, co-creating our reality from a place of connection to the infinite wellspring of potential that is the true nature of existence. This concept of instantaneous connection across vast distances brings us to one of the most tantalizing and controversial intersections of modern physics and ancient human experience, the possibility of psychic phenomena. If two particles can remain entangled, communicating their states faster than light could ever travel between them, what does that imply for our own consciousness? Could the human mind, itself a product of the quantum world, also tap into this non-local field of information? For centuries, mystical traditions and anecdotal reports have spoken of telepathy, remote viewing, and premonitions, abilities that suggest a form of communication or perception unbound by the ordinary limits of space and time. While mainstream science has often dismissed these claims, the framework of quantum non-locality offers a potential scientific vocabulary to explore what might really be happening. Telepathy, the direct transmission of thoughts or feelings between individuals, is perhaps the most commonly reported psychic experience. From twins who sense each other's pain across continents to moments of knowing who is calling before the phone even rings, these incidents suggest a connection that bypasses the usual sensory channels. In a strictly local, classical universe, such a thing should be impossible. But in a quantum universe grounded in non-locality, it becomes at least conceivable. If the fundamental substrate of reality is an entangled, holographic field where every part contains information about the whole, then two minds might not be as separate as they appear. Instead of thoughts traveling through space, they might both be accessing or influencing the same non-local field of information simultaneously. The thought isn't sent. It is simply known in both places at once because the underlying field connecting them has been disturbed or aligned in a specific way. This idea finds a potential mechanism in the concept of quantum coherence within the brain. Some researchers, like physicist Sir Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff, have proposed that microtubules, tiny protein structures within our neurons, could be capable of maintaining quantum states. If consciousness itself has a quantum foundation, then it's not a huge leap to suggest that individual conscious minds could become entangled with each other or with the environment, creating a shared field of experience. In this view, a telepathic connection wouldn't be a mysterious energy beam shooting from one brain to another, but rather a temporary synchronization or entanglement of two quantum systems. Their wave functions would be linked, allowing for a direct, instantaneous correlation of states, a shared knowing without a signal. Remote viewing, the practice of psychically perceiving distant locations, takes this a step further and aligns strikingly with the holographic principle. If the universe is indeed a projection from a deeper, non-local realm where all information is everywhere at once, then accessing a specific location in space wouldn't require your senses to go there. It would only require your consciousness to correctly tune in to the specific information pertaining to that location within the universal field. A trained remote viewer isn't sending their mind across the planet. They are quieting their own internal noise and allowing their brain to decode the holographic information that is, in theory, already present everywhere. Their brain acts as the laser interpreting the cosmic hologram, bringing a distant scene into conscious awareness. The geographical distance is an illusion of the projected reality. In the implicate order, all points are accessible. The experimental history of remote viewing, particularly the once classified programs like Stargate, run by the U.S. government, adds a fascinating layer of intrigue. While the results were often mixed and controversial, the fact that such programs existed and reportedly achieved some statistically significant successes suggests there might be a detectable signal amidst the noise. From a quantum perspective, these successes could be seen as moments where the viewer achieved a state of mental coherence, effectively reducing decoherence in their own cognitive system and allowing them to briefly access non-local information. Their focused intention acts as a measurement that collapses not a particle's position, but a specific packet of spatial information from the field of all possibilities. Of course, this is not to say that quantum mechanics proves psychic phenomena are real. The evidence for these abilities remains hotly debated, and many reported instances can be attributed to coincidence, selective memory, or fraud. The value of the quantum framework is not in offering proof, but in providing a plausible model that could explain how such things could occur without violating the fundamental laws of physics. It removes the necessity for a magical or supernatural explanation and places the discussion within a scientific context of non-locality, entanglement, and holographic information. This shifts the question from, is this possible, to, under what specific conditions could this occur, and how can we detect it? This perspective also helps bridge the gap between the laboratory and the mystical tradition. For millennia, shamans, meditators, and mystics have reported experiences of cosmic consciousness, of perceiving distant events, or of communicating without words. They often describe these states as requiring a quiet mind, a surrendered ego, and a deep sense of connection to all things, precisely the conditions one might expect to foster the mental coherence and reduced neurological noise that could facilitate non-local perception. They weren't developing superpowers. They were learning to fine-tune their consciousness to perceive a deeper layer of reality that is always present, but usually filtered out by our busy, survival-oriented brains. In a universe built on connection, psychic phenomena may not be paranormal at all, but a completely natural, if elusive, expression of our fundamental quantum nature. Now, let's turn our attention to one of the most enigmatic intersections of quantum thought and ancient practice, the art of divination. Think about shuffling a tarot deck or casting the coins for an I Ching reading. In that moment, before the cards are laid out or the hexagram is formed, an almost tangible field of potential hangs in the air. Every possible outcome, every card combination, every symbolic meaning exists in a state of superposition, all equally real and unreal until the precise instant of the draw. This mirrors the quantum world with an uncanny clarity, where a probability wave holds every potential state of a particle in a blurred existence until the act of measurement forces it to choose just one. In both cases, a sea of possibilities is collapsed into a single, definitive event by the simple yet profound act of asking a question. This parallel becomes even more compelling when we consider the role of the observer. In quantum mechanics, it's well established that the act of observation is not a passive process. It is an interaction that fundamentally changes the system being observed. The physicist doesn't simply peek at a predetermined reality. Their choice of what to measure and how to measure it actively participates in shaping the result. Now, consider a tarot reading. The querent arrives with a specific question, a focused intention that directs the reading. The reader shuffles the deck, their own energy and subconscious thoughts mingling with the physical cards. The moment the cards are drawn, that vast field of potential is narrowed into a specific narrative, a story built from the archetypes that have emerged. The outcome is not found, but formed through the collaborative act of inquiry between the querent, the reader, and the symbolic system itself. The reading is not a prediction of a fixed future, but a snapshot of probabilities shaped by the present moment of conscious focus. This process finds a beautiful analog in the ancient Chinese system of the I Ching, or Book of Changes. Its core philosophy is that reality is not static, but is in a constant state of flux, a flowing river of change where multiple potential futures are always branching out from the present. Consulting the I Ching involves formulating a question and then using a randomizing method, like tossing coins, to generate a hexagram, a pattern of 6 broken or solid lines. This hexagram doesn't offer a simple yes or no answer. Instead, it provides a nuanced commentary on the dynamics at play, the spirit of the time, and the probable consequences of following one path versus another. It is a tool for navigating the probability waves of life, offering wisdom on how to align with the most harmonious flow of events. The randomness of the coin toss ensures the outcome is non-local and free from the biases of the conscious mind, while the act of asking the question provides the necessary collapse into a meaningful pattern. What these divinatory practices and quantum theory both suggest is that the future is not a predetermined track we are helplessly riding towards. Rather, it is a landscape of potentials, a vast array of probability waves. A tarot card or an I Ching hexagram doesn't tell you what will happen. It reveals what is most likely to happen given the current energy, circumstances, and trajectory. It highlights a dominant probability wave, but by making you aware of that potential outcome, it gives you the power to interact with it, seeing a challenging card like the Tower, which often signifies sudden upheaval, is not a fatalistic sentence. It is a warning that a probability wave of disruption is strong. This awareness allows you to make different choices, to change your approach, and in doing so, to effectively collapse that wave of potential upheaval into a less dramatic, more manageable event, or perhaps avoid it altogether. The divination tool hasn't predicted the future. It has given you the information needed to consciously participate in its creation. This reframes these ancient arts not as superstitious attempts to cheat fate, but as sophisticated technologies of consciousness. There are practical methods for making the invisible visible, for translating the subtle whispers of the quantum field, the implicate order, into the explicit language of symbols and stories that our conscious minds can understand and work with. When a reader interprets the cards, they are not invoking mystical powers. They are acting as a translator, decoding the holographic information that is already non-locally present and relevant to the current situation. The symbols on the cards serve as a resonant interface, a focusing mechanism that allows the intuitive mind to tap into the Akashic or zero-point field and retrieve information that is beyond the reach of linear, rational thought. In a universe where everything is connected, the question you ask and the cards you draw are not separate events, but are entangled parts of a unified whole, co-creating a moment of clarity and guidance from the infinite dance of possibility. This brings us to one of the most profound philosophical puzzles born from the quantum world. If consciousness plays a role in collapsing reality from possibility into fact, what does that say about our own choices? The quantum measurement problem doesn't just challenge our understanding of the universe. It strikes at the very heart of the ancient debate between free will and determinism. For centuries, classical Newtonian physics painted a picture of a clockwork universe, a vast chain of cause and effect where every event, from the motion of planets to the firing of a neuron, was predetermined by the conditions that came before it. In this fully deterministic view, the feeling of making a free choice is an illusion, a comforting story the brain tells itself as it mechanically processes inputs and generates outputs. Your decision to watch this video was, in principle, predictable from the state of the universe at the Big Bang. This is a deeply unsettling idea, as it seems to reduce human life to a complex but predetermined script. Quantum mechanics, with its inherent randomness and its intimate link to observation, shatters this clockwork certainty. The universe, at its fundamental level, is not a chain of predetermined events, but a tapestry of probabilities. The future is not a single, fixed point waiting to be reached, but a spectrum of potentialities. This introduces a genuine openness into the fabric of reality. When you face a decision, it's not merely the playing out of a predetermined biochemical calculation. You are standing at a quantum crossroads, faced with a superposition of possible actions. The outcome is not certain until the moment you choose. This sounds like the perfect recipe for free will. Our consciousness, through its observational power, selects one path from the many, actively participating in writing the story of reality. Yet here lies the paradox. If our choices are the mechanism that collapses the wave function, what guides that collapse? Is it truly a free, uncaused choice? Or is it itself the product of prior causes, our genetics, our upbringing, our subconscious biases? This is where the debate becomes incredibly nuanced. Some interpretations, like the many worlds theory, sidestep the issue of choice entirely. Every possible decision is made, spawning a new universe for each one. In this view, your consciousness doesn't choose. It simply experiences one branch of an endlessly forking path. Other interpretations suggest that the collapse is random, governed only by probability. But randomness is not freedom. If my choice between tea and coffee is ultimately the result of a random quantum fluctuation in my brain, that feels just as mechanistic and devoid of genuine agency as strict determinism. We are left with a troubling question: is our will truly free, or are we merely the witnesses to a dice roll happening within our own minds? Spiritual and esoteric traditions have been grappling with this paradox for millennia, long before quantum physics provided a new vocabulary. Their answers often point to a sophisticated hierarchy of will. In many traditions, the everyday ego, the part of us that feels it is making choices, is seen as largely conditioned. Its desires, fears, and preferences are shaped by past experiences and societal programming. This level of self operates with a kind of apparent free will, but it is often just choosing between pre-packaged options based on its conditioning. This is the realm of karma, of cause and effect, which looks very much like a spiritual form of determinism. Your past actions create tendencies that influence your present choices. However, these traditions also speak of a higher or deeper aspect of consciousness, the true self, the Atman, the pure awareness that is one with the universal source. This aspect is not conditioned by the past. It is free and unconditioned. From this perspective, genuine free will isn't about the ego making arbitrary choices between vanilla and chocolate. It is the capacity for this deeper consciousness to express itself through the individual. Free will is not the freedom of the personality to do what it wants, but the freedom of the soul to express what it is. It is the ability to act from a place of alignment with this deeper truth, rather than from the reactive patterns of the conditioned mind. A choice made from fear, habit, or social pressure is deterministic. A choice made from love, compassion, or conscious awareness is an expression of true will, a moment where the infinite potential of the source consciously manifests through the individual. This resolves the quantum paradox in a beautiful way. The probabilistic field of the quantum world represents the infinite potential of the unmanifest. The conditioned mind, with its biases and patterns, acts as a filter, making certain outcomes more probable than others. It weights the probability wave. But the act of conscious observation, when it comes from a place of quiet awareness beyond the noisy ego, is the mechanism through which the universe's potential becomes actualized in a way that is both free and harmonious. We are not separate little gods imposing our will on a neutral universe. We are individualized points of awareness through which the universe makes choices about itself. Our free will is the universe's free will, expressed through us. The more we identify with the conditioned ego, the more deterministic our lives feel. The more we identify with the silent witness, the pure awareness behind the thoughts, the more we can participate consciously in this cosmic process of choice, collaborating with reality itself to bring about outcomes that are creative, compassionate, and truly free. Yet for all this breathtaking convergence between the quantum and the cosmic, modern physics still faces one monumental, unresolved challenge, a challenge that stands as the final frontier in our quest to unify the principle of as above, so below into a single, coherent theory of everything. This is the problem of quantum gravity. For over a century, we have lived with two magnificent but seemingly incompatible descriptions of reality. On one hand, we have quantum mechanics, which governs the behavior of the very small with stunning precision, a realm of probability, uncertainty, and particles that are also waves. On the other, we have Einstein's general relativity, which describes the cosmos on its largest scales, where gravity is not a force, but the elegant curvature of spacetime itself by mass and energy. Both theories are spectacularly successful in their own domains, but they speak completely different mathematical languages and break down when forced to confront one another. The most glaring place this happens is at the center of a black hole, a point of infinite density called a singularity, and at the moment of the Big Bang itself. Here, The equations of general relativity predict a reality that becomes meaningless, while quantum mechanics has no framework to describe the severe warping of spacetime. To truly understand the universe as a unified whole, we must find a way to make these two giants talk to each other. We need a theory of quantum gravity. The quest for this theory is more than a technical puzzle. It is the ultimate scientific expression of the Hermetic ideal. It is the attempt to show that the laws governing the macrocosm of galaxies and the microcosm of particles are not just similar, but are fundamentally facets of a single underlying principle. The leading candidates for this theory are where the concept of as above, so below becomes not just metaphorical, but mathematically literal. Let's start with string theory, which we touched on earlier. Its approach is to change the very definition of the fundamental building block of reality. Instead of zero-dimensional points, it proposes one-dimensional vibrating strings. The incredible promise of this idea is that the different vibrations of these strings, their notes, essentially, don't just manifest as different particles. One particular vibration pattern is predicted to describe the graviton, the hypothetical quantum particle that would carry the gravitational force. In this elegant vision, gravity isn't a separate force imposed upon particles. It is simply another melody in the same cosmic symphony played by the strings. The force that holds you to the Earth and the force that binds electrons to an atomic nucleus would emerge from the same fundamental strings vibrating in the higher dimensional fabric of reality. The macrocosmic force of gravity and the microcosmic world of quantum particles would be unified, demonstrating that they are truly as above, so below. Another profound contender is loop quantum gravity. This theory takes a different path, focusing not on what matter is made of, but on the very fabric of spacetime itself. It proposes that space is not smooth and continuous, as Einstein described, but is actually granular, composed of tiny, finite loops woven into a network often called a spin foam. Think of it this way: if you look at a smooth piece of fabric, it appears continuous, but if you zoom in with a powerful microscope, you see that it is actually woven from individual threads. Loop quantum gravity suggests spacetime is like that fabric. These threads of space have a minimum size, a quantum of volume, meaning you cannot divide space into infinitely small pieces. This solves the singularity problem instantly. There is no point of infinite density in a black hole because matter cannot be compressed beyond the smallest possible volume. This theory paints a stunning picture of reality, where the geometry of spacetime itself is quantized, built from discrete building blocks. The curvature of spacetime that we experience as gravity on a large scale would be the collective result of the changing relationships between these tiny, woven loops at the smallest scale. Once again, the macrocosm and the microcosm are revealed to be inseparable. The bending of starlight around a galaxy and the structure of space itself are two views of the same quantum geometric reality. The implications of discovering a successful theory of quantum gravity would ripple far beyond astrophysics, potentially providing the first rigorous scientific framework for understanding consciousness itself. If such a theory reveals that spacetime is emergent from something deeper, a network of relationships, a quantum information field, then it forces us to reconsider the location and nature of the mind. The hard problem of consciousness asks how subjective experience arises from objective matter. But if the new physics shows that matter, energy, and spacetime are all secondary phenomena emerging from a primary reality that is relational and informational, then consciousness may not emerge from the brain. Instead, the brain might be a sophisticated receiver and transducer for a consciousness that is fundamental and woven into the fabric of this deeper level of reality. The brain, with its neural networks, might be a physical structure that interacts with the quantum geometric substrate of the universe, translating non-local information into our local, conscious experience. Your thoughts wouldn't be trapped inside your skull. They would be a localized reading of a cosmic field, a process happening in conjunction with the very geometry of space. This would mean that the ancient spiritual intuition of a universal mind or cosmic consciousness is not in conflict with science, but awaiting a scientific description that is only now being glimpsed at the furthest edges of theoretical physics. We would have, at last, a bridge not just between the large and the small, but between the objective world of science and the subjective world of experience, finally unifying the observer with the observed in a single, elegant, and profound theory of everything. Imagine starting your day not with a frantic scroll through a screen, but with a simple, quiet moment of intention. You sit comfortably, close your eyes, and take a few deep breaths. Instead of trying to empty your mind, you shift your focus. You begin to visualize the day ahead not as a fixed set of events, but as a shimmering field of possibilities. In this state, you are not a passive passenger on a predetermined track. You are the conscious observer, poised at the helm of your own wave function. This is the practical heart of quantum spirituality. It's the understanding that these grand, cosmic principles are not abstract theories to be studied, but living tools to be integrated into the very fabric of your daily existence. It's about moving from awe into application, transforming the way you interact with your own reality from the inside out. One of the most powerful ways to harness this is through a refined approach to meditation. Traditional meditation often focuses on achieving a state of thoughtless emptiness, which can feel frustratingly elusive, but through a quantum lens, meditation takes on a new purpose. It becomes a training ground for your faculties of observation and intention. You are not trying to stop the waves in the ocean of your mind. You are learning to become the unwavering lighthouse that observes them with steady focus. Each time you gently guide your attention back to your breath, you are strengthening your ability to collapse your personal field of mental chatter into a single point of calm awareness. You are literally practicing the art of conscious collapse, building the mental muscle to choose your state of being amidst the infinite noise of potential distractions. This consistent practice enhances your coherence, making you less reactive to external chaos and more resonant with the deeper, harmonious frequencies of peace and clarity. This cultivated state of coherent awareness is the perfect foundation for the practice of manifestation, a concept often misunderstood as mere wishful thinking. Quantum physics provides a more nuanced model. When you set a clear intention, whether it's for a fulfilling conversation, a creative breakthrough, or a sense of inner peace, you are not sending a prayer out into a void. You are focusing your conscious awareness on a specific potential reality within the infinite field of the quantum vacuum. You are, in essence, placing a bookmark in the Akashic library of possibilities. The key is to hold this intention not with the grasping energy of lack, but with the receptive feeling of already having it. This is where vivid visualization is so potent. When you immerse yourself in the sensory details, and most importantly, the emotional frequency of your desired outcome, you are not pretending. You are tuning your entire being, your personal vibrational signature, to match that reality. You become a magnet for synchronicities, people, and opportunities that resonate at that same frequency, effectively allowing you to quantum tunnel through obstacles that seemed solid from your old perspective. This work extends far beyond your meditation cushion and into every interaction of your day. Conscious living, from this viewpoint, means recognizing that every thought, word, and action is a measurement that collapses reality in some small way. A harsh word spoken in frustration collapses a reality of separation and tension. A moment of genuine gratitude collapses a reality of connection and abundance. The practice of mindfulness becomes a continuous, moment-to-moment choice about which reality you are reinforcing through your focus. When you find yourself stuck in traffic, you have a choice to collapse into the wave function of irritation and impatience, or to use that same observational power to collapse into a state of acceptance, perhaps even using the time to listen to an inspiring podcast. You begin to see that you are not a victim of your circumstances, but an active participant in a continuous co-creation with the universe. This isn't about controlling external events, but about mastering your internal response, which in turn shapes the reality you experience. Finally, we can bring this full circle with a simple yet profound practice: gratitude. From a quantum perspective, gratitude is far more than a positive emotion. It is a powerful technology for shifting your vibrational frequency. The act of genuinely feeling thankful for what you already have is an instantaneous collapse of your wave function into a state of abundance. It tells the universe, through the language of feeling, that you are already in resonance with plenty. This state of receptivity makes you far more open to recognizing and receiving the next good thing, creating a virtuous cycle. Try ending each day by mentally revisiting 3 specific things you are grateful for. Feel the appreciation in your body. In doing so, you are not just reflecting on your day, you are performing a final, intentional collapse of your reality into a state of grace, programming your subconscious to seek out and recognize more of that same harmony tomorrow. This is how the esoteric becomes practical, and the quantum becomes spiritual. It's the daily choice to use your awareness to weave a reality of meaning, connection, and purpose, one conscious observation at a time. What an incredible journey we've taken together, from the sun-baked temples of ancient Egypt to the shimmering event horizons of black holes, from the mystical insights of alchemists to the bewildering equations of quantum physicists. And through it all, one timeless thread has woven itself into every part of our exploration: the profound, elegant, and seemingly universal truth of as above, so below. This isn't just a poetic mantra or an esoteric curiosity. It's a principle that appears to be coded into the very fabric of existence itself, a bridge between the world of spirit and the world of science that is stronger, more relevant than ever before. We've seen how this ancient Hermetic axiom finds stunning validation in the most unexpected places, in the quantum realm, where particles defy space and time through entanglement, mirroring the mystical idea of a unified web of life. In the holographic nature of the universe, where the whole is enfolded within every part, echoing spiritual teachings that the macrocosm resides within the microcosm. In the fractal geometry that repeats from the branching of our neurons to the vast cosmic web of galaxies, showing us a universe that builds itself using the same sacred blueprints at every scale. And in the role of consciousness itself, where the simple act of observation seems to participate in the very creation of reality, affirming what meditators and mystics have reported for millennia. This isn't a coincidence, it's a convergence. It suggests that the drive to understand the cosmos and the drive to understand our own souls are not separate quests, but 2 sides of the same great human adventure. This beautiful synergy invites us to live differently, to see ourselves and our world through a new lens. You are not a passive spectator in a predetermined universe. You are an active participant in a cosmic dance of co-creation. Your focused awareness, your heartfelt intentions, and your conscious choices are the tools through which infinite potential becomes personal reality. The principles of quantum physics don't just belong in a laboratory. They are a guide for everyday magic, for shaping a life of meaning, connection, and wonder. The universe is not a cold, mechanical void. It is a living, responsive, and intelligent field, and you are an inseparable part of its magnificent unfolding. Now, I am deeply curious to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had a moment of synchronicity that felt like more than just chance? A flash of intuition that defied logic, perhaps an experience during meditation or in nature where you felt a profound sense of connection to something much larger than yourself. Share your stories in the comments below. Let's create a living library of experiences and explore this fascinating frontier of quantum spirituality together. If this journey has expanded your view of reality, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the mysteries of consciousness, the cosmos, and the hidden connections that bind them all together. Thank you for watching, and remember, the greatest adventure is the one that